This green and blue wonderland is also a part of sports history. Some of the most important gymnastic meets of the 1980s have been held here. The Olympic trials of 1980 and 1984 were held in Jacksonville. Today, a new breed of gymnasts are back. 1988 Olympic bronze medalist Phoebe Mills leads an all-star entourage back to Jacksonville for the international mixed pairs. Mills will be teamed with Pat Kirksey of the University of Nebraska. He finished third at the recently held American Cup. Also from the U.S., Brandy Johnson, a 1988 Olympian that just won the 1989 American Cup. She will be teamed with Lance Ringnauld. He was the youngest member of the 1988 U.S. Men's Olympic team. But the U.S. pairs will get a stiff challenge from the Soviet Union. 14-year-old Olesya Dudnik was a silver medalist at the American Cup of 1989. And that is where her partner, Vitaly Marinich, won the gold. Marinich, by far one of the strongest gymnasts in the Soviet Union, will try to win again tonight. It's international mixed pairs from Jacksonville. ESPN and the United States Gymnastics Federation presents International Gymnastics. Catch the spirit. From the Jacksonville Coliseum in Jacksonville, Florida, it's the McDonald's International Mixed Pairs Championships. Today's coverage is brought to you by the good time and great taste of McDonald's. Welcome inside the Jacksonville Coliseum, where an enthusiastic and knowledgeable crowd is on hand to watch this international mixed pairs event. Hello, everyone. I'm Leandra Riley. We have 17 nations on hand, and this is an event where you only are as strong as your partner. And keeping that in mind, let me introduce my partner in this event. He is expert analyst Peter Vidmar, no stranger to Jacksonville. Back in 1980, as a skinny 18-year-old, this was his first Olympic trials where he placed third. He came back in 1984, right here to Jacksonville, in the 84 trials where you placed first. And of course, in 84, you went on to win a gold medal in Los Angeles. Welcome, Peter Vidmar, and today we have a great event on hand, and I know you're glad to be back in Jacksonville.
Yeah, now I'm a skinny 27-year-old, but it's fun to be back where I made 2 Olympic teams. It really is.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the competition that we have on hand. First and foremost, the international field is headed by the Soviet Union. Olesya Dudnik is paired with Vitaly Marinich, a strong tandem from the Soviets.
Well, Dudnik is clearly fitting into the mold of great Soviet gymnasts. She's a young gymnast, and she's going to be one of their finest performers. Marinich is probably one of the finest gymnasts that the Soviets have right now. He's their rising star. He does a wild horizontal bar routine, and I really hope we see them in the finals, and I'm sure that we will.
All right, it's an interesting format where you have to score well to advance, so I do hope we do get to see him in the horizontal bar. But let's talk about some of the powerhouses for the USA. The tandem that has to be the strongest, and I'm saying this based on the American Cup finish of Brandy Johnson. She won the gold medal at the recently held American Cup. She's teamed up with Lance Ringnauld, and that's a strong combination.
It sure is. Brandy proved that she's the #1 gymnast in the United States right now by taking the American Cup title. Lance is probably our finest gymnast. He's only 18 years old. We can look to him to really lead the USA into the 1992 Olympic Games.
And of course, in the United States, there's also the household name of Phoebe Mills. Phoebe Mills has grown 1 inch, gained 5 pounds, but it is pure muscle. Growing has been not detrimental to Phoebe Mills. She is teamed with Pat Kirksey, and that too is a strong team.
That certainly is. They could take this whole title. Phoebe could have won the American Cup. She had a fall on her best event, ironically, the balance beam. Patrick is probably the biggest surprise, I think, in the American Cup scene, because he wasn't really expected to do as well. He ended up placing third in the entire competition, and this is one of his first major international competitions. So we're off to a great start leading into the 1992 Olympics.
Okay, aside from the fact that it's 2 pairs, we also have another feature in the fact that they only compete in 3 apparatus, so really any team could be strong. We'll come back and begin competition, but first this. Welcome back, and since this is an unusual event that you're about to watch, we thought we'd explain some of the rules to you. Although gymnastics will still be scored on a scale of 1 to 10, some of the orders of the competition and how they are paired plays into effect here. 3 rounds of competition, 16 pairs will compete in round 1. The top 8 will survive for round 2, with only 3 going to round 3. Only 2 USA qualifiers may advance to round 2, and the top USA qualifying pair may go into the final round. The females will compete first, the males will compete second. The scores are combined for a total, and that determines who moves into the next round. The gymnast must utilize a different event in each round, and by that I mean if a gymnast elects to compete on the balance beam, she may not do that in the next round. And the champions are determined by the combined total scores of all 3 rounds. So what you do in the first round carries over into the second, etc. Steadiness combined with strategy is certainly the formula for success. And for strategy, I'm going to turn to you, Peter Vidmar. What is the best strategy in a meet like this?
Well, when I competed in the mixed pairs, I usually put my second best event up first, and then I would save my best performance for the very end, hoping, of course, that I could make it into the final round.
But wouldn't that backfire on you? Don't you want to do your best first to make sure you get into the second round?
Well, the problem is usually your highest scoring event can sometimes be your most difficult and risky event.
Well, we'll have to see how that pans out. Good crowd here in Jacksonville, Florida, watching the international mixed pairs. You are looking now at Bella Caroli. He is the coach of Phoebe Mills. Phoebe Mills has had to vault first because all of the women who elect to use vaulting as one of their events had to do it in the first round, obviously for equipment reasons. She was a bronze medalist on the balance beam in the 1988 Olympics, and we should add that Phoebe Mills is technically the defending champion of the mixed pairs, having won this event last year in Allentown. Of course, her partner was Kevin Davis. Phoebe Mills is now waiting for the green flag from the judges. As soon as she gets that, she will be able to vault. Again, her partner for this competition is Patrick Kirksey. And in the first round, Patrick Kirksey will be competing on the parallel bars. Now, for the male gymnasts, if they elect to vault, they must do so in the second round.
Phoebe's going to be using one of these round-off entry vaults. The round-off entry vaults are the new vault that the gymnasts have been doing the last few years. But I'd say about 90% of the gymnasts now use this vault simply because you don't have to be quick and powerful to get a good score on vaulting anymore if you use the proper technique for the round-off entry vault.
And what about the men?
Well, the men started to use it briefly a few years ago, but a gymnast from the Soviet Union used it in a competition in the United States, really crashed badly, and so they banned the vault. And now it's accepted, and we actually have a gymnast from China that's doing it in the men's competition.
We should add that the women vault with the horse sideways, the men vault with the horse lengthwise, and that's why it was banned for the men.
Good run. There's her round off. Full twisting Sugahara. Beautiful vault. She'll score very well.
Like typical gymnastics meets, the scores will run from a scale of 1 to 10. So the judging still is the same.
Now, she's not running extremely fast because you don't have to have a very quick run going into the round-off entry vault. There's the round-off. Does a flip-flop onto the horse. Does a Sugahara with a full twist. Takes a hop. That'll be a little deduction. All in all, she has very good technique, gets a lot of height, gets good distance, should get a good score.
Although you said it covers power, it seems to me the risk element in this vault is still tremendously high. You make a mistake and you really wipe out in a serious way.
There is a great deal of risk, but now there are some safety factors added onto it. You have to realize the board was never designed for someone to hit it going backwards. You'll see a mat surrounding the board now. Excellent throw.
Stuck it.
That's the one that
went. What the judges do is they'll turn in their scores, they'll average the total for the first vault, and then she'll vault a second time, as you just saw, and they'll turn in their scores for the second vault, and it is only the higher of the 2 vaults that count. That is not the case with the men when they vault. They only get to vault once, and it counts whether it's good or bad.
We used to complain about that. We say it wasn't fair, but just put some added pressure on.
Now we can look at her partner, Patrick Kirksey. He is a junior at Nebraska.
Patrick was a key player in Nebraska's NCAA championship last year. He was only a sophomore, and no one really heard a lot about him, and he had a really tough meet. Made no mistakes.
Patrick is coached by Francis Allen and Jim Howard.
It was a peach to a straddle cut, swing up to a handstand. Patrick is a big gymnast. It's a back toss right to a handstand. Another back toss. That's a Healy twirl, kind of a new skill recently. 2 in a row, very, very difficult. There's a front uprise, straddle cut to an L. Now, if you have a strong stomach, this actually becomes a rest position as you sit in that L. Presses up to a handstand and gets ready for his dismount.
I'm glad you qualified that with a strong stomach.
And double back, good landing.
I don't exactly go home and rest in an L position myself. Some young fans on hand as a 5'10" Patrick Kirksey dismounts.
It'll be just a few moments until these scores are.
Now here's the Healy twirls. These are there's a skill called a Diamidov that was very popular a few years ago. It's a very difficult one, and this is basically a reverse Diamidov. From a handstand into a full turn, one arm on the bar, does it again, and when you miss that bar, boy, it's a long drop down to the bottom. Patrick did a very good dismount, took a little step on the end. That's going to clearly be about a 1/10 of a point deduction. But it's nice and solid. Gets a good tuck, solid landing, takes a little step back.
Let's take another look at Phoebe Mills' second attempt at vaulting, and this is one we feel that will get the higher score.
It was an excellent vault. You notice the mat surrounding the board. That's a safety device. It's new. Her legs are slightly apart at the beginning, but it's just an excellent vault, and she zeroes in just right there in the landing.
And we've just heard that her vaulting score is 9.9. But as we said, it is a combined score that matters. So while she gets a crowd applause from her partner, Pat Kirksey, it's what he does that will now matter.
And I'll tell you, consistency is the name of the game here. If you make a little mistake, you are not going to make it into the next round.
And he received a 9.50.
Ontario, Canada. This is Stella O'Mare.
And my quick math tells me that that's worth 19.4. So 19.4 for Mills and Kirksey, setting a pretty high standard by which the others must compete against. We'll be back with more, but first, these messages. Florida, I'm Leandra Riley, along with Peter Vidmar. And 19.4, that's the combined score of Phoebe Mills and Pat Kirksey. But right now we are going to move internationally. Our young lady from Hungary, Henriette Onodi, is ready to compete on the uneven parallel bars. Now she's just 4 feet 6 inches tall. The first time you saw her on gymnastics in the United States was at the 1987 American Cup, where she was just 4 feet tall and 56 pounds. Now she's grown to a whopping 4'6" and 66 pounds. She is little, even by gymnastic standards.
You know, Leander, earlier we talked about how Phoebe Mills had grown so much. I mean, now she's 5'1",
right?
and that's a giant almost in women's gymnastics. So especially when you look at gymnasts like Onodi. Beautiful free hip, full turn. Skip to the high bar. And a beautiful Ganger. Didn't get a lot of height, but very nice form. There's a Jaeger salto, down to the low bar, tip to a handstand. Now she keeps up to get ready for her last series of swings before her dismount. There's a giant. Giant full turn and double tuck. Beautiful routine.
Now she barely has to bend between the bars. But I think he pointed out something interesting about no height. She is so little that she doesn't have the strength really to get some rebound and some power, some explosiveness off the uneven parallel bars.
You're right. See, those bars have a certain bend, a certain give to them, and there's an optimum weight for someone swinging on uneven bars to get a good bounce, but she can barely make the bars bend at all.
This is her partner. He too is from Hungary, Zsolt Horváth, obviously on the pommel horse.
You wonder, why would anybody want to start on pommel horse? This is like balance beam for the girls. Not one girl in this competition is starting out on beam, and here he is on pommel horse. But he comes from a long tradition of great pommel horsemen from Hungary, and they just look at this as just any other event. He's doing very, very well. At the very beginning, he did some unique flares to a handstand across the horse.
He is 20 years old and has been on his national team for 3 years.
Nice flow work at the end, right up to a handstand. And that should score well.
Horváth is a 1988 Olympian, finishing 28th in the all-around.
Now here's his last sequence. He does the flares, traveling down to the end of the horse, loops around into one more flare and takes it right up to a handstand. This is pretty much the standard dismount on pommel horse. If you don't go to a handstand, you're not doing the big tricks.
Let's go back to his partner, Henriette Onodi.
Now here's one of her release moves. She kips through up to the high bar. Kip to a handstand, and right there, that's a very, very difficult front giant. She's a pirouette into a full twisting giant. And now here's her dismount, immediately into a double tuck. Zeroes in on the landing. Just a little hop.
And for that routine, she received a 9.825. Remember, Phoebe Mills received a 9.9 on her first vault. So she's keeping right up with Phoebe Mills on her end of things. Pat Kirksey received a 9.5 for his parallel bar routine, and that's really the score that Zsolt Horvat has to outdo in the pommel horse, because the combined total that they're trying to surpass is 19.40. However, all they really want to do is get into the second round, and it is the top 8 teams that will advance.